Today, the nation of Israel is regarded by Jewish people worldwide as their homeland. Israel's constitution stipulates that any Jew who has not committed a crime or converted to another religion, along with their spouse and children, can automatically receive Israeli citizenship. It is widely known that the Jewish people, an ancient nation, endured nearly 2,000 years of diaspora before the establishment of Israel in 1948. For centuries, they lacked a sovereign state. However, the land where they built their nation is surrounded by Arab Muslim countries, leading to ongoing conflicts between Jews, who practice Judaism, and their Arab neighbors since Israel's founding. The Middle East conflict, fueled by both sides, remains a ticking time bomb amidst global efforts for peace and development. What historical events have shaped the Jewish people's journey? Why did they endure millennia of exile, and why did they choose to establish their nation in this contested region? Today, Legacy Files invites you to explore the tumultuous history of the Jewish people and Israel to uncover the answers. To discuss the ancient history of the Jewish people and Israel, we must begin with the records in the Old Testament. Beyond the Bible, few other sources document the early history of the Jews. Although the Old Testament is a religious text central to Judaism and Christianity, many of its details and stories have been corroborated by archaeological discoveries. This suggests that the Old Testament is not only a religious work, but also a blend of mythology and historical events from the ancient Western world. According to the Old Testament, after creating Adam and Eve, God expelled them from the Garden of Eden for eating the forbidden fruit. They settled on earth, multiplied, and became the ancestors of humanity. The Bible teaches that humans are born with original sin, women endure pain in childbirth, men face the toil of labor, and all must continually pray for forgiveness. Over centuries, the descendants of Adam and Eve grew numerous, but God observed that humanity's morality had deteriorated severely. Consequently, God decided to send a great flood to eradicate the wicked. God identified one righteous man, Noah, known for his noble character. He revealed his plan to Noah, instructing him to build an ark to save his family and representatives of every animal from the flood. Clean animals were taken in pairs of 7, while unclean animals were taken 1 pair per species. This is the story of Noah's Ark. The flood came as foretold, submerging the earth. When the waters receded, the world was reborn. Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives spread across the globe to repopulate it. The descendants of Shem grew numerous, and their tribe became known as the Semites. Today, both Jews and Arabs claim descent from the Semites. Among them was a man named Abraham, a devout believer in God as the sole creator and omnipotent deity. Due to his unwavering faith, Abraham received God's favor. One day, God instructed Abraham to lead his tribe to a land flowing with milk and honey. Abraham guided his people across the Euphrates River to the land of Canaan, the region encompassing modern-day Israel and Palestine. To the native Canaanites, Abraham and his followers were outsiders, so they called them Hebrews, meaning people from beyond the river. For Jews, Abraham's story symbolizes the origin of monotheism. The land of Canaan holds sacred significance as the promised land God designated for them. When Abraham was 99, God appeared again, renaming him Abraham, meaning father of many nations in Hebrew, signifying that his descendants would spread worldwide. God also mandated that all male descendants of Abraham undergo circumcision as a physical sign of their covenant with him, marking them as God's chosen people. After Abraham's death, his son Isaac assumed leadership and maintained faith in God. Isaac had twin sons, Esau and Jacob, who became rivals over their inheritance. Jacob eventually fled south to Haran, modern-day Syria, where he married 2 women arranged by his uncle and fathered 12 sons. These sons became the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. Due to conflicts with his uncle, Jacob decided to return to Canaan. On the journey, he wrestled with an angel who, unable to defeat him, touched Jacob's thigh, leaving him lame. Jacob prevailed, and the angel gave him the name Israel, meaning he who struggles with God. Henceforth, Jacob's descendants called themselves Israelites. This is also why Jews avoid eating the tendon of an animal's thigh, believing it to be a sacred site touched by the angel. Among Jacob's 12 sons, he favored Joseph, sparking jealousy among his brothers. They sold Joseph to merchants bound for Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph's intelligence led him to become a vizier, and he started a family. Years later, Joseph reconciled with his brothers, and the Egyptian pharaoh permitted him to bring his family to settle in Egypt. Thus, the Israelites left Canaan for Egypt. However, centuries later, as the Israelites grew powerful, the Egyptians feared they posed a threat and began oppressing and enslaving them. To curb their population, the pharaoh ordered the killing of all newborn Israelite boys. During this time, an Israelite couple hid their newborn son, placing him in a basket and setting it adrift on the Nile River. By chance, the pharaoh's daughter found the child, adopted him, and named him Moses. Raised as an Egyptian prince, Moses later discovered his true heritage. After certain events, God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, tasking him with leading his people out of Egypt and granting him divine powers to fulfill this mission. The Israelites agreed to follow God's plan and Moses' leadership to return to Canaan. The pharaoh refused to release them, so God unleashed 9 plagues on Egypt, devastating the land. Still, the pharaoh remained defiant. Finally, God sent a 10th plague, killing the firstborn sons and livestock of every Egyptian household, including the pharaoh's heir. Only then did the pharaoh relent, allowing Moses to lead the Israelites out. However, soon after their departure, the pharaoh changed his mind and sent his army to pursue them. At the Red Sea, Moses called upon God's power to part the waters, enabling the Israelites to cross. When the Egyptian army followed, the sea closed, drowning them. This is the story of the Exodus from Egypt. After leading the Israelites to the Sinai Peninsula, Moses ascended Mount Sinai to establish a covenant with God, inscribing it on stone tablets known as the 10 Commandments. These include 1. Worship only one God. 2. Do not worship idols. 3. Do not misuse God's name. 4. Keep the Sabbath holy. 5. Honor your parents. 6. Do not murder. 7. Do not commit adultery. 8. Do not steal. 9. Do not bear false witness. 10. Do not covet others' possessions. The 10 Commandments profoundly shaped the Israelites, formalizing their covenant with God and reinforcing their identity as His chosen people, unifying the Jewish nation. According to the Bible, Moses lived to 120, but died before leading his people back to Canaan. His successor, Joshua, guided the Israelites through numerous trials. After 40 years of wandering, they returned to the promised land of Canaan in the 13th century BCE. At this time, the Israelites, descendants of Jacob's 12 sons, were divided into 12 tribes, split into southern and northern groups. The southern tribes called themselves Jews, or the tribe of Judah, while the northern tribes were known as the tribe of Israel. The Israelites had not yet formed a unified community or established a nation, with each tribe led by its own leaders, known as judges. In Hebrew, judge also means prophet. These judges managed civil affairs and led the tribes in battle, similar to tribal chieftains, marking the era known as the period of the judges. By the late 11th century BCE, the Israelites faced a formidable enemy, the Philistines, a seafaring people from Canaan's southern coast. Fierce and skilled warriors, the Philistines repeatedly attacked Israelite territories, plundering wealth and land. Facing their aggression, the fragmented Israelite tribes suffered repeated defeats, prompting them to consider uniting against external threats. In 1020 BCE, during a critical moment for the Jewish people, a judge named Samuel sought God's guidance. Following God's will, he anointed Saul as the first king to unite the tribes, establishing the United Kingdom of Israel with Samaria as its capital. This marked the end of the period of the judges and the beginning of the monarchical era. Saul led the Israelites to multiple victories against the Philistines, saving them from annihilation. During these battles, a young man from the southern tribe of Judah, David, emerged as a courageous and skilled warrior. David became a military leader and a celebrated hero alongside Saul. Legend holds that David wielded a sturdy shield adorned with a six-pointed star, now known as the Star of David, a symbol on Israel's flag and emblematic of Judaism. As Saul aged, he grew temperamental and distrustful, disrespecting God and the prophets. His unfair treatment of the southern tribe of Judah eroded their support. Fearing David would usurp the throne, Saul plotted to kill him. In 1000 BCE, unable to endure further, David led the southern tribe of Judah in rebellion against Saul, aligning with the Philistines. This led to Saul's devastating defeat, and he and his 3 sons perished in battle. After Saul's death, the tribe of Israel descended into chaos. David, leveraging Philistine support, unified the 12 tribes of Judah and Israel, becoming the new king. David allied with Tyre, modern-day Lebanon, and waged war against the Philistines, conquering lands east of the Jordan River and south of the Dead Sea. He expelled the Philistines from the region and captured a Canaanite fortress, Jebus, expanding it into a city. David relocated the capital of the United Kingdom of Israel to this city, renaming it Jerusalem, meaning City of Peace. Jerusalem became the political, economic, and religious center of the Jewish people, later revered as a holy city by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Its strategic location at the crossroads of West Asia, North Africa, and the Eastern Mediterranean made it a perennial target of military powers, ensuring it would never truly be a city of peace. In 960 BCE, David died, and his youngest son, Solomon, succeeded him, ushering in the golden age of the Jewish kingdom. Allied with Egypt, the kingdom became a regional power in Palestine. Solomon promoted overseas trade, amassing wealth, and his name became synonymous with prosperity in Western literature. To honor God, Solomon commissioned skilled artisans to build the first temple, also known as Solomon's Temple, on Jerusalem's Temple Mount. He also constructed a lavish palace, with both structures adorned with gold. However, Solomon's extravagant spending depleted the treasury, foreshadowing the kingdom's decline. To sustain his opulence, he imposed heavy taxes, exploiting the Israelites and sparking widespread discontent. In 930 BCE, Solomon died, and his successor, Rehoboam, failed to resolve the growing unrest or reconcile the 12 tribes. Consequently, the United Kingdom of Israel split into 2, the Northern Kingdom of Israel and the Southern Kingdom of Judah. After the split, the Northern Kingdom of Israel lasted about 200 years. By the late 8th century BCE, internal conflicts weakened the royal family, while the rising Assyrian Empire in Mesopotamia expanded toward Palestine. In 722 BCE, amid internal and external challenges, Assyria conquered the Kingdom of Israel. The Assyrians treated the Jews as spoils of war, forcibly relocating them to Iraq in what is known as the First Great Dispersion in Jewish history. The southern kingdom of Judah survived roughly 100 years longer, but faced intermittent destruction and restoration by the Assyrians and Egyptians. In 586 BCE, King Nebuchadnezzar II of the Neo-Babylonian Empire conquered Jerusalem, destroying the city and the first temple. The Jews were taken captive to Babylon, marking the Second Great Dispersion, also known as the Babylonian Exile. During this period, the Jewish people faced the loss of their homeland and profound uncertainty about their future, elevating the role of prophets. This unprecedented crisis strengthened religious consciousness, laying the foundations for Jewish ideology. Beyond monotheism and the covenant, a core belief emerged: the expectation of a Messiah who would restore the Jewish people's former glory. This belief became a spiritual anchor for the exiled Jews. In 539 BCE, after King Cyrus of Persia defeated Babylon, the exiled Jews were permitted to return to Jerusalem. They rebuilt the city and constructed the Second Temple, reviving the Holy City. Under Persia's lenient religious policies, the Jews enjoyed a rare period of peace as an administrative unit of the Persian Empire. However, this tranquility was short-lived. Persia's invasions of Greece provoked Alexander the Great of Macedon to conquer Persia, establishing a vast empire across Asia, Africa, and Europe. After Alexander's death, his empire fragmented, with Israel initially falling under the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt. The Ptolemies continued Persia's tolerant religious policies, allowing Jews to practice their faith freely. Some Jews integrated into Greek society, but Palestine's strategic location between West Asia and North Africa made it a contested region between the Ptolemies and the Seleucid kingdom. To engage the Jews, Ptolemy II commissioned Jewish and Greek scholars to translate the Torah into Greek, creating the Septuagint. This translation made Jewish scriptures accessible beyond Hebrew, laying the groundwork for Christianity's emergence. The Septuagint remains a foundational text for Christian churches today. By the 2nd century BCE, after repeated conflicts, the Seleucid kingdom supplanted the Ptolemies as Israel's rulers. Unlike the Ptolemies, the Seleucids harshly imposed Greek culture, suppressing Judaism. They banned Jewish practices, destroyed scriptures, and closed temples. In response, the Jews revolted when the Seleucid king demanded they worship the Greek god Zeus, violating the first of the 10 Commandments. In 141 BCE, Simon Maccabee, leader of the Jewish resistance, became king, founding the Hasmonean dynasty centered in Jerusalem. The Jewish people experienced a brief renaissance. This resurgence was short-lived as Rome rose across the Mediterranean. In 63 BCE, Roman general Pompey captured Jerusalem, massacring thousands of Jews and enslaving others. To avoid Roman oppression, many Jews fled Palestine, dispersing worldwide. Pompey installed a puppet king from the Jewish royal family, but real power rested with Roman official Antipater. Later, Antipater's son, Herod, replaced the Hasmoneans as king under Roman rule, marking the Herodian dynasty. Herod, one of history's most infamous Jewish kings, was both a tyrant and a capable ruler. Paranoid and ruthless, he executed priests, his wife, and 2 sons, fearing betrayal. To win favor with his subjects, who distrusted him, Herod funded a grand renovation of the Second Temple, transforming it into a magnificent structure known as Herod's Temple. Despite his cruelty, Herod's architectural legacy endured. At 70, he died of illness, and his kingdom was divided among his 3 sons per his will. A few years later, Roman Emperor Augustus consolidated the territories into a single administrative unit under direct Roman control, ending the Herodian dynasty. During Herod's reign, Christianity emerged in Jerusalem as an offshoot of Judaism. Unlike Judaism, which holds that only Jews are God's chosen people and awaits a future Messiah, Christianity teaches that Jesus is the Messiah and welcomes all believers as God's chosen. Unbound by ethnic limits, Christianity spread rapidly, becoming the dominant religion in the Roman Empire. However, Rome's state religion worshipped Jupiter, and emperors viewed Christianity as a threat, persecuting its followers. Since early Christian missionaries were often Jews, and Jerusalem was a hub for their activities, Roman emperors intensified control and oppression of Jews in Palestine. In 66 CE, after enduring prolonged oppression, the Jews launched the First Jewish-Roman War. Emperor Nero sent troops to suppress the revolt, but internal Roman turmoil led to their withdrawal. In 70 CE, after quelling domestic unrest, Emperor Vespasian's forces recaptured Jerusalem, massacring and crucifying countless Jews. The Second Temple was reduced to its foundation, now known as the Western Wall. Jerusalem lost its status as a political and religious center, and many Jews fled to Egypt and Mesopotamia. The war's failure fueled Jewish resentment toward Rome. Decades later, under Emperor Hadrian's continued religious persecution, the Second Jewish-Roman War erupted in 132 CE, led by Bar Kokhba. The rebels briefly recaptured Jerusalem, but Rome's superior forces crushed the uprising after 3 years. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed or enslaved, and many were expelled from Israel, beginning a nearly 2,000-year diaspora. To suppress Jewish resistance, Hadrian demolished Jerusalem's structures, built a Roman temple on the Temple Mount, renamed the city Aelia Capitolina, and banned Jews from residing there. Nearly 200 years later, in 313 CE, Emperor Constantine the Great issued the Edict of Milan, legalizing Christianity. Christianity later became Rome's state religion, and Jerusalem regained its original name, becoming a Christian holy site. Although Christianity stemmed from Judaism, it branded Judaism as heresy, intensifying Jewish persecution. After the Roman Empire split, the Eastern Roman, Byzantine, Empire controlled Jerusalem. Initially, Byzantine emperors allowed Jews to visit Jerusalem annually to mourn the temple's destruction at the Western Wall, also called the Wailing Wall. This ritual, rooted in unwavering faith, helped Jews maintain their identity despite centuries of dispersion. Without a homeland, temple, or preserved scriptures, the Jews relied on rabbis, spiritual leaders who replaced traditional priests banned under Roman rule. Rabbis guided religious and legal practices, compiling the Talmud, a detailed code governing Jewish life. This ensured that Jews, though scattered globally, maintained shared beliefs and customs, a remarkable achievement in world history. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell, and Germanic tribes established feudal kingdoms in Europe, adopting Christianity as their state religion and intensifying persecution of non-Christians. In the Byzantine Empire, Emperor Theodosius the Rosary ended religious tolerance, banning Jewish practices. This dark period persisted until the 7th century, when the Arab Empire rose under Islam. The Arabs unified the Arabian Peninsula and conquered Jerusalem and Mesopotamia. Initially tolerant, they allowed Jews to practice their faith and reside in Jerusalem, viewing them as kin due to shared Semitic ancestry. Jews aided Arab expansion, and under Arab rule, their social status improved. Gifted in commerce, Jews thrived in trade, buying silk and porcelain from China via Arab merchants and selling them in Europe for significant profits. The Mediterranean became their commercial hub, with Spanish Jews excelling in trade, culture, and science, making Spain a prosperous European center. However, after the 11th century, the Arab Empire declined, and Christian forces expelled Muslims from Spain. By the 14th century, Christian dominance ended the Jewish Golden Age. Persecution resumed, with Jews humiliated, beaten, killed, enslaved, or forced to convert. Approximately 300,000 Jews were expelled from Spain and other countries. The Crusades, aimed at reclaiming Jerusalem from Muslims, also devastated Jewish communities. Fanatical Christian crusaders killed Jews en route, viewing non-Christians as heretics. Jews' wealth, amassed through commerce, made them targets for plunder. False accusations, such as using children's blood in rituals or poisoning wells during the Black Death, fueled anti-Jewish sentiment. The Catholic Church deemed usury sinful, leaving money lending to Jews, who prospered while impoverished Christians grew resentful. Nobles and clergy coveted Jewish wealth, imposing heavy taxes or fabricating charges to seize assets. Judas's betrayal of Jesus, associated with Jews, cemented their image as deceitful. Living under constant persecution, Jews endured until the late 15th century, when Columbus's discovery of the New World prompted some to migrate to the Americas, explaining why the U.S. now has the second largest Jewish population after Israel. Most Jews remained in Europe, facing ongoing oppression. In the late 19th century, large-scale anti-Jewish pogroms in Russia forced over 2 million Jews to flee, sparking the Zionist movement. Named after Mount Zion, near Jerusalem, Zionism called for Jews to return to Canaan, the biblical Promised Land, and establish a Jewish state. At the time, Jerusalem was under Ottoman rule, populated by Muslim Arabs who, viewing it as an Islamic holy site, opposed Jewish return. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, while Britain, part of the Allied powers, sought to undermine Ottoman control. The Jews, pursuing statehood, became strategic allies. Jewish financiers supported the Allies, particularly Britain. After the war, Palestine came under British mandate. In gratitude for Jewish support, Britain approved Jewish settlement in Palestine. Jews invested heavily, establishing settlements while planning a new state. World War II brought unprecedented tragedy, with 5.8 million Jews killed by the Nazis, including over 1 million at Auschwitz. Post-war, the Holocaust's horrors galvanized global support for Zionism. Jews flooded Palestine, preparing to build their nation. However, tensions with Arabs escalated, particularly over Jerusalem, especially the Western Wall. For Jews, it is the last remnant of the temple, sacred for worship. For Muslims, it is where Prophet Muhammad tethered his horse before ascending to heaven, adjacent to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and Dome of the Rock. On November 29, 1947, the United Nations passed a resolution to partition Palestine, placing Jerusalem under UN control and dividing the rest into Jewish and Arab states. Jews, jubilant at the prospect of a homeland, accepted the plan despite Jerusalem's status. Arabs rejected it, insisting Palestine should be a single Arab state with Jews as a minority. They also contested the UN's allocation of 57% of the land, fertile coastal and oasis areas, to the smaller Jewish population, while Arabs, more numerous, received 43% of arid land. Outraged, Arabs vowed to defend their ancestral homeland with arms. On May 14, 1948, per the UN resolution, the State of Israel was established. The next day, neighboring countries, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, declared war, igniting the First Arab-Israeli War. Legacy Files will cover the 5 Arab-Israeli wars in a separate video. Over the next 34 years, through these conflicts, Israel solidified its presence in Palestine, gaining full control of Jerusalem. After over 2,000 years of exile, the Jewish people returned to their promised land. The rest of the story is likely familiar. This episode concludes here. Thank you for joining Legacy Files, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.